The moment Kim Dokja entered Gumho Station, the atmosphere changed completely. The survivors gathered inside immediately recognized the people arriving from Kyoto Station. Whispers spread throughout the station. Many of the newcomers were injured. Others looked exhausted and barely able to stand. Yet somehow they had survived. The residents of Gumho Station stared in disbelief as Kim Dokja moved through the crowded station with a wounded woman at his side. A familiar voice suddenly called out to him. He turned and saw a young woman staring at him with wide eyes. For a moment, she looked completely frozen. Then relief flooded her face. It's really Kim Dokja. Several familiar faces rushed toward him. They were overjoyed to see him alive. A small boy grabbed onto him while others gathered around, checking to make sure he was unharmed. For the first time since arriving, Kim Dokja found himself surrounded by people who were genuinely happy to see him. One of the survivors lowered his head. "I'm sorry for leaving you behind." Kim Dokja shook his head. It couldn't be helped. There was nothing any of us could have done. Then another remark caught his attention. "We're thankful Yu Jong-hyuk was right." Kim Dokja paused. "Yu Jong-hyuk?" The survivors nodded. "He said you'd probably survive." Kim Dokja's eyes narrowed slightly. "So Yu Jong-hyuk had been here. Where is he now?" "He left yesterday." The answer came immediately. Kim Dokja finally understood. That explained why the survivors from Kyoto Station were still alive. In the original story, many of them should have died. But Yu Jong-hyuk had already left Gumho Station before those events could unfold. He had more important objectives to pursue. Yu Jong-hyuk was a regressor, a man who had lived through the same life again and again. By the time he reached his third regression, he had become someone capable of abandoning anything that slowed him down. If leaving Gumho Station helped him move closer to his goal, he would leave without hesitation. Still, Kim Dokja couldn't hide his disappointment. There was a time when Yu Jong-hyuk would have at least dealt with people like Bang Chul-soo before moving on. A survivor looked at Kim Dokja curiously. "Are you talking to yourself?" Kim Dokja blinked. "Just a habit." The explanation sounded weak even to him. A blue notification appeared before his eyes. "The constellation's secretive plotter likes your self-talk." Kim Dokja ignored it. As the commotion settled, Han Soo-young glanced around the station. "It looks like we're missing someone." Then she remembered. The manager. Before anyone could continue the conversation, a loud voice echoed through the station. "Everyone move aside." Heavy footsteps approached from the crowd. People quickly stepped back as a group of armed survivors pushed their way forward. Kim Dokja immediately noticed the bats and metal pipes in their hands. The atmosphere turned tense. Then he saw the man leading them. The moment their eyes met, the man's face turned pale. The man pointed at Kim Dokja with a trembling finger. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. A memory surfaced in Kim Dokja's mind. Just a few days earlier, that same man had desperately warned everyone about him. He had shouted that Kim Dokja was dangerous, that he was deceptive, that he should never be allowed into the station. The memory disappeared as another person stepped forward. A young man with a friendly smile casually placed a hand on the frightened man's shoulder. "Haha, that's no way to treat a guest. We should all try to get along." Unlike the others, the young man carried himself with complete confidence. He smiled warmly at Kim Dokja. "It's nice to meet you. It seems you've only just arrived." He extended a hand. "May I know your name?" Kim Dokja studied him carefully. The man's face felt strangely familiar. "My name is Cheon In-ho." The moment he heard the name, Kim Dokja remembered it. He had definitely seen that name somewhere before. Kim Dokja accepted the handshake. "I'm Kim Dokja." At the same time, he quietly assessed the situation. So this was the person leading the station, the man in charge. That explained why the survivors from the Kyoto group immediately backed down when he appeared. Kim Dokja had beaten several members of their group and taken their supplies. There was no way their leader would simply ignore that. Yet Cheon In-ho showed no signs of hostility. Instead, he smiled even more brightly. "I've heard a lot about you." Kim Dokja frowned. "Heard what?" "I heard that you fought the monsters and saved the people from our group." That wasn't the response Kim Dokja had expected. Before he could say anything else, Cheon Inho suddenly turned toward the crowd and raised his voice. Everyone, please gather around. We have a brave newcomer joining us today. He pointed toward Kim Dokja. This person brought food for all of us. A wave of excitement spread through the station. Food. In the current world, that single word was enough to capture everyone's attention. Hungry eyes turned toward the bags Kim Dokja was carrying. Whispers quickly filled the air. People smiled for the first time in days. Something to eat. A real meal. For many of them, that was more valuable than anything else. Cheon Inho spread his arms and smiled brightly. Welcome to Gumho Station, Kim Dokja. The crowd immediately began whispering among themselves. Kim Dokja almost laughed. So this was their plan. A blue notification appeared before his eyes. The constellation's secretive plotter is excited. Cheon Inho led the group deeper into the station. At the moment, there are 86 people living in Gumho Station. He smiled. If we include you, then that makes 87. Kim Dokja looked around. There were fewer survivors than he had expected. When the scenarios first began, only the people near the station and those riding the train survived. Lee Hyunsung nodded grimly. I don't like saying it, but that means every one of them cleared the first scenario. In other words, every person here had killed someone to survive. Every survivor in Gumho Station was a murderer. Kim Dokja already knew what kind of place this was. The survivors had gradually divided themselves into two groups. The powerful and the powerless. The mainstream group and a marginalized group. The mainstream group occupied the center of the station. They spoke confidently about rescue and recovery. Our leader is working hard. Everyone will be saved soon. Many survivors clung desperately to those words. Meanwhile, the marginalized group remained isolated along the edges of the station. Hungry children cried quietly. Parents struggled to reassure them. Be patient. The rescue teams will arrive soon. The government will do something. Listening to them, Kim Dokja wondered whether they truly believed those words or simply needed something to hold on to. When 100 murderers gather together, divisions are inevitable. The strong rise to the top. The weak are pushed aside. Cheon Inho stood among his followers, smiling confidently. Everyone, don't lose hope. We'll be leaving this place soon. The crowd responded enthusiastically. Kim Dokja watched silently. Food distribution was completely controlled by the mainstream group. A large pile of supplies sat under their supervision. Unfortunately, the stockpile was shrinking fast. It won't last much longer. So we're sending people to the surface to search for food. Han Soo-young glanced toward the unconscious woman resting nearby. Hee-won was sent to the surface too. Hee-won. Kim Dokja looked at the woman. That's her name. Han Soo-young nodded. There were others who went with her. Her expression darkened, but only the marginalized group never came back. Kim Dokja immediately understood what that meant. The strongest survivors were protecting themselves while sending the weak to take all the risks. He turned toward Lee Hyunsung. You never joined the mainstream group? Lee Hyunsung looked uncomfortable. Well, I'm sure they tried pretty hard to recruit you. Lee Hyunsung hesitated for a moment before answering. I thought it would be better to refuse. He lowered his eyes. I didn't want to abandon my principles. A faint smile appeared on his face. Maybe it's hypocritical to talk about right and wrong after everything that's happened, but it still felt wrong. Kim Dokja looked at him quietly. Then he said, hypocrisy isn't a bad thing. Lee Hyunsung blinked. As long as you never lose that feeling, you'll be fine. Many people would laugh at words like morality in a world that demanded murder for survival. But Kim Dokja knew better. Just because something was unavoidable didn't make it acceptable. No matter how necessary it became, there were lines people shouldn't forget. From across the station, Cheon Inho approached with a friendly smile. Kim Dokja, could we talk for a moment? Kim Dokja already knew what was coming. The women and children sat nearby, clutching the food he had brought back. Cheon Inho stopped in front of him. I'll get straight to the point. He extended a hand. Join our group. Just as I expected. Cheon Inho continued smoothly. I can give you a high position. I want us to lead this station together. Kim Dokja crossed his arms. And if I refuse? Cheon Inho laughed softly. Refuse? That's interesting. I never even considered that possibility. His smile never wavered. You saved members of our station. You defeated monsters. Someone with your abilities has a responsibility to lead people. So that's your angle. Cheon In-ho wasn't interested in partnership. He wanted legitimacy. Having Kim Dokja standing beside him would strengthen his authority over everyone in Gumho Station. You want to make use of my reputation? Cheon In-ho simply shrugged. It's not a big request. I only want your cooperation so that everyone here can survive. Then he pointed toward the people gathered around the station. A mother held a crying child in her arms. Elderly survivors sat against the walls with exhausted faces. Hungry people stared at the dwindling food supplies. Look at them. They need help. The entire station fell silent. All eyes turned toward Kim Dokja. Cheon In-ho's voice remained calm and persuasive. Can you really abandon those people? The question hung heavily in the air. Kim Dokja looked around at the crowd. Then he slowly raised his eyes. His expression remained completely unreadable. Lee Hyun-sung glanced toward the group that had just left. Was it really okay to reject them like that? Kim Dokja looked at him. Did you want me to accept? That's not what I mean. Lee Hyun-sung hesitated before continuing. It's what Cheon In-ho said at the end. The conversation replayed in his mind. If you ever change your mind, come find us. That won't happen. Lee Hyun-sung frowned. He sounded confident. Kim Dokja shrugged. We'll find out soon enough. Then he looked down at the bags of food piled beside him. It's getting late. Aren't you hungry? The atmosphere immediately changed. The bags were opened, revealing canned food, snacks, and supplies packed tightly inside. Take one each. Lee Hyun-sung stared at the mountain of food. Really? Are you sure? Before Kim Dokja could answer, a loud voice suddenly echoed through the station. Hey! Everyone froze. Several people stood nearby, staring directly at the food. Their expressions were anything but friendly. The group pushed through the crowd and approached. Are you seriously keeping all that food for yourselves? You don't even have enough to feed everyone. So you're just going to hoard it? More people gathered behind them. One man pointed angrily. We heard you promise to share food with everyone. Then why are you only giving it to your own group? Hand it over to Cheon In-ho. He'll make sure everyone gets a fair share. Kim Dokja remained seated. Beside him, Lee Gil-young quietly tightened his grip on the food he was holding. The crowd's anger continued to grow. In a ruined world like this, the most dangerous people weren't always the ones driven by despair. Sometimes the truly dangerous people were the ones who used the despair of others for their own benefit. At that moment, Kim Dokja finally remembered. Cheon In-ho, Gumho Station's self-proclaimed leader. A man who built power by manipulating fear, hunger, and desperation. Someone who convinced people they were acting for the greater good while quietly strengthening his own position. Then a familiar voice rose above the crowd. Choose. The station fell silent. Choose whether you'll hand over your resources and become a hero. A faint smile appeared on Cheon In-ho's face as he stepped forward. Or keep them for yourself and become a villain. The crowd immediately began murmuring. Hero, villain, such simple words. Yet they were powerful enough to control people. Kim Dokja slowly narrowed his eyes. Cheon In-ho, so this is your game. Before he could respond, a blue message suddenly appeared before everyone's eyes. You're currently within the area of the second main scenario. Move frequently toward the location where the main scenario is active. A sharp notification sound echoed through the station. Ding! The scenario was beginning to move again.